WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar and Banjul, 7 p.m. in Abuja and Porto Novo. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West African Democracy Radio Broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Former Malian Prime Minister Choguel Maiga breaks silence, slams military authorities over transitional failings. In Chad, 30 armed group members sentenced to 20 years as Ombudsman seeks presidential pardon. Calm returns to Lomé after protests amid demands by civil society for truth and justice as authority blamed diaspora activities of inciting unrest.
It was important for us to denounce the brutal violence, the harsh repression carried out by the security forces and militia groups under the authority of those in power, targeting young unarmed protesters as well as ordinary citizens.
President Tinubu's assent tax reform bill received commendation from Nigerians and businesses.
These reforms are not about raising more taxes. I think people get it wrong. This is exactly trying to relieve people of the burden of taxes.
Breaking down the other benefits for the SMEs. But in all, it's a laudable one.
Details of these stories and more coming up shortly.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana and Liberia. My name is Sankule Jibril Janko. Newslink begins in Mali, where former Prime Minister slammed military authorities over transitional failings. In a statement published on Sunday, former transitional Prime Minister Choguel Maiga strongly criticized the current regime, denouncing what he described as its abuses and failings. Maiga expressed deep concern over the state of the country, saying he feels personally called to speak out. Christopher Atichu has the rest of the story.
In this 10-page document, Choguel Maiga openly criticizes the management of the ongoing transition in Mali. Having served as Prime Minister for 3 years under the same transition, Maiga says he is alarmed by the worsening situation in the country. As a son of this nation who has held high office, I feel personally compelled and morally obliged to speak out and offer my modest contribution, the former head of government declared. Breaking her silence, Maiga harshly criticizes the transitional authorities, accusing them of reviving old methods and practices of the previous regime, methods the Malian people fought hard to eliminate. He also condemned widespread poverty, corruption, and abductions, arbitrary detentions, and the use of the justice system to silence dissenting voices. Now increasingly positioning himself as an opposition figure, Maiga further alleged that there are plots being orchestrated against Mali and against himself by certain military and civilian figures within state institutions, though he did not mention anyone specifically. Since his dismissal as Prime Minister in November 2024, Choguel Maiga has repeatedly spoken out against the transition, despite having previously called for its support.
Details from our correspondent in Bamako, Adicham, voiced by Christopher Atichu. Elsewhere in Chad, around 30 members of the Revolutionary Movement for Total Peace in Chad have been sentenced to 20 years in prison. The members of the armed group were prosecuted for undermining the constitutional order. They were arrested on May 15, 2023 by defense and security forces near the Chadian Central African border. In a statement released over the weekend, the Ombudsman of the Republic, Saleh Kalzo, called for presidential pardon for these individuals in the name of national reconciliation. The group was convicted on June 24 by a criminal court in Momondu for undermining the constitutional order. In a 28th statement, Kaza emphasizes of his commitment to ensuring the defendant's rights are respected and legal proceedings are not delayed. He noted that the legal appeals remain available, and should the verdict come to final, his office will seek clemency for those convicted who request it. Elsewhere in Togo, following the demonstration of June 26, 27 and 28 to demand the resignation of long-time leader Faure Gnassingbé, calm appears to be returning to capital Lomé. However, images and videos circulating on social media from the early days of the protests reveals acts of violence committed against citizens by security forces. The situation has sparked reactions from opposition political parties, civil society organizations, and human rights groups. Imo Edet reports.
Several civil society organizations and human rights groups have condemned the crackdown by security forces and militia members during the recent protests. Among them are the Citizen Front Togo Debo, Abed, Aja, Asatept, Novation International, ATD8, Rejab, Toulouse La Page Togo, MMLK, SP, BT, FDCI, and CTST. These groups describe the current period in Togo as dark times and denounce what they call inhumane and degrading treatment inflicted on the population. Professor David Dose also reacted to the situation.
It was important for us to denounce the brutal violence, the harsh repression carried out by the security forces and militia groups under the authority of those in power, targeting young unarmed protesters as well as ordinary citizens. We must condemn this extreme violence, which resembles a true policy of terror being implemented by the regime.
The civil society and human rights organizations provided an overview of the 3 days of protests, recalling that 2 lifeless bodies were recovered from the 4th lake in OSIWA on the morning of June 27. 3 more were found in the Blair Lagoon that same afternoon, and 2 additional bodies were discovered on June 28 in Yekonakpoe. All neighborhoods where the protests took a more violent turn, although official reports suggest these were cases of drowning. Many voices, particularly within civil society, are rejecting that explanation. They are calling on the government and especially the president of the council to ensure truth and justice for the victims, bring an immediate end to the violence and the prevailing culture of impunity, and secure the unconditional release of all detained individuals. They are also demanding the respect for the rights to protest and an independent international investigation to uncover the truth behind these incidents and hold those responsible accountable.
Lomé correspondent Sylvie Ouedraogo's report presented by Imo Edet. Meanwhile, the Togolese government has broken its silence following recent protests, accusing influencers, bloggers, and activists based abroad of inciting hatred, violence, and civil disobedience. In a statement released last night, authorities described the protest calls as disinformation, and a clear violation of Togo's laws. The government says all arrested individuals are facing immediate legal proceedings, while investigations continue to track down those behind the disinformation and manipulation campaigns. The alleged organizers and their sponsors are already subject to legal action. In Côte d'Ivoire, an ECOWAS pre-election fact-finding mission begins this Monday, 4 months ahead of the country's next presidential election. The objective is to meet key stakeholders in the electoral process as preparations intensify for the upcoming vote. More details with Abdullahi Hassan.
The mission is led by Professor Theodore Holo, former member of Benin's Constitutional Court. It consists of about 10 members, including Abdul Fattah Musa, ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security. The delegation is supported by electoral experts from across the sub-region and the technical team headed by Fanta Cissé, ECOWAS resident representative in Côte d'Ivoire. During this pre-election mission, meetings are scheduled with members of the Ivorian government, including the Ministries of Foreign Affairs and Interior and Public Security. The delegation is also expected to meet with the Independent Electoral Commission, which is responsible for organizing the polls. Talks are planned with the ruling party, RHDP, the opposition, and civil society organizations to assess the state of readiness for the election. At the end of its mission in Abidjan, scheduled to conclude on July 5, ECOWAS will produce a report containing recommendations aimed at ensuring a peaceful and transparent electoral process. It is worth noting that Côte d'Ivoire's presidential election is set for October 25, 2025.
Abdullah Hassan reporting.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
To security matters in Benin, several terrorists were killed on June 24 and 28, 2025 during a double offensive led by the Beninese Defense and Security Forces in the north at the Point Triple area of the Libori Department. The successful operation was made possible through coordinated action by members of Operation Mirado, who say they remain on high alert and will not surrender a single square inch to the enemy. More details with Augustine Coley.
The first offensive took place on Tuesday, June 24, 2025, in the Alibori department located in the far north of the country. During the operation, security forces dismantled a terrorist base. The operation resulted in 6 terrorists being neutralized, with weapons also seized at the scene. The second offensive was carried out last Saturday by commando units from the Defense and Security Forces. Their target was a terrorist base on a construction in the border area. Several terrorists were killed during this operation, although casualties were also recorded among the defense and security forces. Images circulating on social media showed the lifeless bodies of terrorists, some dressed in civilian clothing, others wearing Beninese military uniforms. These uniforms are believed to have been stolen during previous attacks and used as a disguise by the armed groups. These recent offensives come just months after a double attack carried out by unidentified armed men in the so-called Point Triple Zone in northern Benin, targeting the Beninese military. That attack left more than 50 people dead.
A report by WDR's Aziz Adam Sule in Cotonou and voiced by Augustine Coley. To matters relating to taxes, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is receiving widespread commendation following his assent to 4 key tax reform bills aimed at overhauling Nigeria's tax system. Economic analysts, business groups and social media users have been reacting to the development, describing it as a step in the right direction. Yesini Sasetu brings us more in this report.
President Bola Tinubu has signed into law 4 major tax reform bills aimed at simplifying Nigeria's tax system, easing the burden on businesses, and promoting national development. The Nigeria Tax Bill, Ease of Doing Business, consolidates multiple tax laws into a single framework, while the Tax Administration Bill establishes a unified tax operation system across federal, state, and local governments. The Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill replaces the Federal Inland Revenue Service with a more autonomous, performance-driven agency and the Joint Revenue Board. Establishment Bill formalizes collaboration among all revenue authorities in the country. Speaking at the signing ceremony, President Tinubu described the laws as pivotal to his administration's broader economic reforms.
At the end of the day, what you must land with is the hope to develop the people and show the right character towards the destination.
Chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, Taiwo Oyedele, explains that the reforms are designed to address Nigeria's complex and fragmented tax structure.
These reforms are not about raising more taxes. I think people get it wrong. This is exactly trying to relieve people of the burden of taxes. These tax laws, they are now laws, are pro-poor in particular. More than 1/3 of workers in both the private and public sector will now be exempted completely from PAYE. They will not have to pay personal income tax.
The reforms have sparked widespread reactions, with many Nigerians taking to social media to commend the move. The excitement is also echoed by experts and the business community. Firo El Hassan is the CEO of Lal Fee Farms, a small business producing dehydrated foods. She believes the reforms will ease operations for entrepreneurs like her.
I'm sure over the next couple of weeks, more engagements and discussions will be had by those in that space, breaking down the other benefits for the SMEs. But in all, it's a laudable one.
The Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry has also welcomed the reforms. Its president, Emeka Obegulu, praised the exemption of small businesses with annual turnovers below 50 million naira from company income tax. He also highlighted that the simplified filing requirements will make compliance easier and support the growth of micro and small enterprises. For WADR, Yechini Sasitu in Abuja.
Well, still in Nigeria, the federal government has reiterated its commitment to creating a safe, respectful and inclusive environment for seafarers across the country. Speaking at the 2025 Seafarers Day celebration in Port Harcourt, Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, Adegboyega Oyetola, emphasized that harassment and bullying have no place in Nigeria's maritime industry. He added that the country is aligning its seafarers' training and education with global standards. Take a listen.
The federal government of Nigeria, through the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy, is committed to enhancing the seafaring profession. We are prioritizing quality training by upgrading maritime institutions, expanding capacity building programs, and aligning our seafarers' education with international standards. We are committed to full compliance with the STCW Convention, including recent amendments mandating anti-harassment training on board ships. These steps are vital to ensure our seafarers remain competitive and globally employable. Additionally, the government is investing in seafarers' welfare through stronger regulation of recruitment and placement agencies, improving access to decent work, and collaborating with ship owners to guarantee fair treatment and onboard safety.
Nigeria's Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, Adegboyega Oyetola. You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and from Dakar, Senegal, and around the world on WADR. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Former Malian MP Choguel Maiga breaks silence, slams military authorities over transitional failings. In Chad, 30 armed group members sentenced to 20 years as ombudsman seeks presidential pardon. Calm returns to Togo after protests amid demands by civil society for truth and justice, as authority blamed diaspora activists of inciting unrest. And President Tinubu's assented tax reform bill received commendation from Nigerians and businesses. Still ahead in the news, we have guest interview and sport news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
The government of Liberia has organized a symbolic reburial of former President Samuel Doe over the weekend, coinciding with the burial of his wife, ex-First Lady Nancy Doe, who passed away last month. Liberia's descent into civil war in 1989 was largely fueled by discontent with Doe's regime and the emergence of various rebel factions. Samuel Doe, a member of the Kanak ethnic group, was captured and executed by rebel forces in 1990, marking a tragic end to his controversial rule. The ceremony, held in Wadr, Grand Gede County, attracted citizens, opposition groups, and members of the ruling party. WADR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
This event followed President Bouakar's State of the Nation address, in which he announced the plans for the reburial of former presidents Samuel Doe and William Richard Tolbert as a means to foster national unity. During the ceremony, President Bouakar emphasized that the reburial symbolizes a collective effort to heal from the wounds of civil conflict and pursue a future marked by justice and unity. He urged Liberians, especially the youth, to learn from the past and reject division in favor of a united and prosperous Liberia. However, the decision to hold a state funeral for Doe and others whom some consider warlords has faced criticism from various segments of the population. Notably, the Student Unification Party has publicly opposed the government's decision, arguing that Doe should not receive state recognition for his role in the Civil War.
Amid hardship, the bumper increment of the U.S. rate, the Commodore Joseph Poycock is using 2.5 million to celebrate what we call a reburial ceremony of a warlord that is on record for massacring our people. Though there is a contradiction of history.
Doe's legacy remains complex as he is remembered for both his initial promise of change and the subsequent turmoil that defined his presidency, reflecting the deep-seated issues within Liberian society. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
On the Labour front, after nearly a week of disruptions to National Identification Services, the National Identification Authority (NIA) has announced the suspension of the indefinite strike action by its staff, clearing the way for the resumption of the registration activities across the country. The strike, which began over resolve allowances and salary concerns, has left many Ghanaians unable to access vital ID services. The latest development follows intense negotiations between the government, union leaders and key stakeholders. From Accra, now the detailed reports.
The National Identification Authority (NIA) has confirmed the temporary suspension of an indefinite strike by its staff under the Public Services Workers Union (PSWU), allowing full operations to resume nationwide from Monday, June 30, 2025. In a public statement signed by William Ampoma E. Dallas, head of corporate affairs at the NIA, the authority explained that the decision comes after several rounds of dialogue involving the National Labour Commission, the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, and the Ministry of Finance and leadership of the PSWU. Management expressed appreciation to the union for the spirit of cooperation shown and assured staff that their concerns regarding welfare and allowances remain a top priority. The strike, declared on June 24, 2025, disrupted ID registration services, causing frustration for citizens seeking access to identification documents. According to the NIA, all registration centers across Ghana will be fully operational from June 30, and the authority encouraged the public to take advantage of the restored services. The NIA also reaffirmed its commitment to providing reliable, accessible, and efficient identification services in line with its national mandate. The industrial action was in protest over delays in the payment of operational support allowances, which union leaders described as the only financial relief for NIA staff struggling with low base salaries. The allowance has reportedly been unpaid since January 2025, despite previous agreements between the union and the Ministry of Finance. Union leaders resorted to the strike after what they called unproductive final talks with government officials on June 23, 2025, failed to provide a definite roadmap for resolving the issue. The NIA expressed regrets for the inconvenience caused during the strike period and thanks the public for their patience and understanding. For WADR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest interview takes us to Nigeria, where President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is receiving widespread commendation following his accent to 4 key tax reform bills aimed at overhauling Nigeria's tax system. Economic analysts, businesses, groups, and social media users have been reacting to the development, describing the 4 tax reforms, thus the Nigeria Tax Act, Tax Administration Act, the Nigeria Revenue Service Act, and Joint Revenue Board Act as a step in the right direction. Our guest is Dr. Tope Fasua, a special advisor to President Tinubu on economic affairs.
The premise for the entire reform was the knowledge that we had that Nigeria's tax system was suffered from a few defects. First of all, it wasn't very progressive in terms of the very rich people paying more. Number one. Number two, there was a lot of informality. There's a lot of informalization, whereby a lot of people who had money and could pay found a way of riding free and not making the right kind of payment that they should make to the government. So, and this is what results in very low tax to GDP ratio for Nigeria, results in very low revenue base for Nigeria. And then we talk about revenue to debt servicing ratio that's very low. And even within Africa, we compared and realized that, look, even a lot of countries were doing a whole lot better than Nigeria, despite Nigeria having a fairly large economy, which is formidable within Africa. We are now increasing the threshold for taxation of personal income from something around 360,000 naira to about £1 million naira, and we're trying to enforce it more, to ensure that anyone earning $1 million and below is not even approached for taxes at all. And of course, this is now going to be backed by technology to make us sieve out those who should pay more to government. So it's a very pro-poor, pro-business, pro-economy, pro-hope reform, which consolidates on the other reforms that have been taken.
Nigeria is set to be on a borrowing spree, where at the moment, as of March 2025, the country's total public debt stock rose to some 149.39 trillion naira, which marks a year-on-year increase of some 27.72 trillion naira. How will this tax that you said it's pro-friendly, pro-poor, pro-business friendly, and encourage more people to pay their tax to enable the country collect more revenue for its infrastructure development, play out in curbing the appetite for the government borrowing?
One of the things that happen is that every country has a borrowing plan and keeps to that borrowing plan more and more. Nigeria runs one of the more disciplined regimes in terms of managing its debt, number one. Number two, a growing country must get some debt from time to time, except if you don't have a dream for your people. If you don't want to, number one, you have to plan for the growth of your population. If the population is growing, even if it wasn't growing, you have to make provision for what's going to happen, because when your population is not growing, then you're in trouble, like countries like Japan, like Italy, and so on. For in Africa here, and especially Nigeria, our population is growing, so we have to plan for growing population. Nigeria is a country that has never defaulted on its debts, ever. We have a 100% record in that regard, and of course, in recent times, we've been having better ratings from some of the best rating agents around the world. So there's no reason. So we are not on a borrowing spree. These, of course, whatever we're borrowing is based on a medium-term expenditure framework, which are advised by World Bank, IMF, and all of the Bretton Woods agencies. So the economy is doing better, structurally getting much better. So we actually are not on any borrowing spree. In fact, most of our loans that we were taking now are project tied and have their own cash flows.
From your point of view, how would you say to ensure that the state and local governments cooperate fully in the implementation of these tax, and again to build taxpayers' confidence while reducing corruption during the collection process?
Right, thank you very much. Digitization is what actually is actually the bulwark against the kind of corruption and inefficiencies we have seen. One of the thrust of this new tax law is that more and more human interference will be removed totally, such that no more cash payment of taxation anywhere in Nigeria, so that we can actually know exactly what we want. And of course, the people that are paying, the taxpayers also, are very happy to understand that no more cash payment.
Dr. Tope Foswa is the special advisor to President Tinubu on economic affairs. And in sports, I have my colleague Christopher Atichu in the studio.
Sankule Janko.
About sports.
Yes.
You seem excited.
Well, I'm very excited because.
What, is it because of the Club World Cup or what?
Well, yes,
Chelsea is not playing. I don't know why you're so
Chelsea
excited.
Is not playing, but we won over the weekend. We won yesterday, and then at least that gives us the opportunity to move into the next round of the FIFA World Cup. But of course, we're beginning sports from home in Senegal here, where the country is actually based, or the country's national team has begun preparation to defend their 2024 Total Energy African National Championship, which is the Chan tournament, which will be taken in place from August 2 to August 30, 2025 across Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania as well. Then from there also we move on to Nigeria, because the national women's team were able to beat Ghana 3-1 in that friendly games, and I think Nigeria's team is very in form at the moment.
They are the record winners.
They are the record winners of the African Cup of Nations, the women's side. They also played 0-0 with Portugal in that friendly. And finally, let me also bring this particular good news to Franz of Pogba, because he's actually back to the football field again, signing a 2-year contract with AS Monaco.
Wow, that's a good news.
That's a very good news.
Thank you very much, Christopher Atichu, with the latest sports. And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Fali Luso and Umu Danyogo for technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter and Instagram at WDI News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Sankule Jibril Janko. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM.